UFC 314 comes up this weekend from Miami, and we went over it yesterday. A couple very intriguing fights at the top of this card, but that doesn't stop with the top two fights. There are some bangers on UFC 314 and a couple of very big fights for a couple of very interesting fighters in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Let's go through it and look at the fighters to watch coming up at UFC 314. UFC 314 this Saturday. Pay-per-view on the top of the card. It is Alex Volkanovski against Diego Lopez for the Featherweight Championship. Michael Chandler also in a must-win as he takes on Paddy Pimblett. But the intrigue, as mentioned before, does not stop at the top. We have a few fighters to watch. We got two fights that have caught my eye and then one undercard fighter that we need to watch. So overall, it's a pretty good card, I would say. The UFC have certainly done bigger and better, but they've also certainly done worse recently. So we're going to start here with the one that seems kind of obvious, but it is Patricio Pitbull taking on Yair Rodriguez. Pitbull, one of the, he is a Mount Rushmore guy in Bellator, and now he is coming over to the Ultimate Fighting Championship, and he is getting an all-action fight test to start. We talked about this fight when it was announced. It is finally here, and I am so excited. This is going to be just an absolute war and an absolute brawl. And look, I don't know if Pitbull at this point in his career has championship aspirations or anything like that, right? Like he is, like I said, all-time great in Bellator, but I don't know if he comes into the UFC and just, boom, rockets to a title. But this is going to be an interesting test to see where he is at. Yair Rodriguez has challenged for titles before. He fights in a style that Pitbull likes to fight in as well. So we get to see what can you do as a fighter at this high of a level, going up against a style that fits the style that you want to do. So I think it is a really intriguing fight from that sense to just see, okay, this is kind of a lot of it is playing up for you. We're not just putting you in there against the wrestler who's going to grind it out on you for 15 minutes. We're going to see, in the style that you want, how competitive are you in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Very interesting fight. And for Yair, it's a big name. He's looking to work his way back into a championship opportunity. And so this is a big test for him against a guy who is not all-time great or anything like that, but a guy who is, of his era, a very good fighter making his UFC debut. So a lot of intrigue and a very fascinating fight coming up. That one's on the main card of UFC 314. Down on the undercard, I believe, Dan Ige against Sean Woodson. Dan Ige is always going to be in the fighters to watch. I have appreciated his career, but it's hit a bit of a speed wobble. It's back-to-back losses, and I think 3 of his last 4, taking on Sean Woodson, who we would not consider a prospect at this point, but someone who is on a pretty good run in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. I forgot to write the records down, but I believe 13-1-1 coming into this fight. And so this is, again, a bit of a litmus test for both of these guys. Ige coming off of a few losses, how far down are we? No offense to Sean Woodson, but how far away are we from a championship opportunity? Because he lost a couple of fights ago to a guy who's getting a championship shot now, right? So, okay, but how far down are we? And for Woodson now, it's kind of okay, how for real is this? Because if you can get past Dan Ige, now we're getting into, maybe not 2 fights away from a title, but we are getting into challenging higher up, top 10, top 15, flirting maybe even with top 5 type of talent, if we can win this one and then put a couple of other ones together. So this is a real interesting one to see, where are both of these guys? Ige, veteran, been around for a while, but has hit a bit of a speed wobble. Woodson has been around for a while as well, but hasn't really faced a test like this one before. So really interested to see where these two guys are at, and a fun kind of litmus test fight coming up at UFC 314. And our last fighter to watch, it's Yan Xiaonan. Quite the fall, going from title challenger to now on the prelims, and not even the main fight on the prelims, I don't believe. I still think there is a very dangerous fighter in there for Xiaonan, but admittedly, it has not gone particularly well as of late. And so where is she going into this one? She's 35 years old. She is coming off of a win over Tabitha Ricci after the unanimous decision win over Zhang Wei Li. So we have this setback, really tough one to take. Big stage, UFC 300. We get the loss. We come back. It's a decision win over Tabitha Ricci. Now we're trying to build it back up, going up against Verna Jandiroba. Rolls off the tongue. 36-year-old out of Brazil, coming off of a win over Amanda Lemos. And so again, you are now Jandiroba, who I don't view, again, 36 years old. We're not talking about a prospect here, but Lemos is a talented fighter, but potentially like title challenging days are over. And so a win here for Verna, and all of a sudden now Xiaonan might be in that talented fighter, but title challenging days are over category. And that's not, I think her talent is above that. So this is, we talk a lot about how UFC 314 is kind of this fight for relevance for a few people on this card. And I think it's the same here for Xiaonan, that this is a spot where if she wants to get back to that title level, this is a win. And it probably needs to be a finish as well to work her way back into that conversation. Although no one is really jumping out ahead or anything like that. But it's been a lot of decisions lately. I get a decision win against Ricci. She knocks out Andrade, and a decision win over a Mackenzie Dern. Now, Dern's coming on a little bit as well. But this is, I think, a time for Xiaonan to establish, like, look, I know I lost, and that sucks, but I am still at that level. So let me show you that I'm at that level. That this, I think, needs to be a bit of a stamp here from Yao Xiaonan coming up this weekend at UFC 314. So, 2 fights and 1 extra fighter to watch coming up for this pay-per-view. Coming up on the YouTube stream on Thursday and on the podcast on Friday, we will have UFC 314 preview for you, running through all the big fights and giving some predictions, some underdog picks, and stuff like that here on Couch Potato Diary. Let's move on now to the world of professional wrestling.